The sound of screeching tires pierced the air as Karen's Mercedes lurched to a stop in front of the gilded entrance to Westbury Wedding Hall. She glared at the young parking attendant who dared to step in front of her vehicle, his hands raised in a futile attempt to halt her advance. "Get out of my way, you incompetent fool." Karen spat, her perfectly manicured nails gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. "Don't you know who I am?" The attendant, a lanky kid barely out of his teens, gulped nervously. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the lot is full. You'll have to park on the street." Karen's eyes narrowed to slits, her nostrils flaring with indignation. "On the street? Do you have any idea how important I am? This is my daughter's wedding, and I will not be relegated to some filthy curbside like a common plebeian." Without warning, she floored the gas pedal, the Mercedes lurching forward as the attendant frantically leaped out of the way. Karen's tires screeched in protest as she barreled through the entrance, heedless of the startled guests and staff who scrambled to avoid her path. Bringing the car to a screeching halt in the closest available spot, Karen threw open the door and stormed towards the wedding hall, her designer heels clicking against the pavement. The parking attendant, his eyes wide with shock, hurried after her, his voice barely audible above the commotion. "Ma'am, you can't park there. That's reserved for the bride and groom's families only." Karen whirled around, her face twisted in a mask of pure fury. "Do you have any idea who I am?" she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "I am Veronica Hastings, mother of the bride, and I will park wherever I damn well please." The attendant, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment, opened his mouth to protest, but the thunderous expression on Karen's face silenced him. With a resigned sigh, he simply gestured towards the entrance, muttering, "Please, just go inside, ma'am." Satisfied with her victory, Karen swept past him, her head held high. Little did she know, however, that the young parking attendant she had so ruthlessly dismissed was none other than the groom's best friend, Tyler, and this was only the beginning of her downfall. As Karen strode through the ornate doors of Westbury Wedding Hall, her eyes swept over the elegantly decorated venue, her lips curling in disdain. She had always believed that her daughter, Olivia, deserved nothing less than the grandest, most lavish affair, and this was simply not up to par. "Olivia," she called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Where are you, darling?" Olivia, a radiant vision in her ivory lace gown, emerged from the bridal suite, her face lighting up at the sight of her mother. "Mom, you made it," she exclaimed, rushing to embrace Karen. Karen stiffened, allowing the hug with the barest minimum of affection. "Of course I made it, darling. I wouldn't miss my only daughter's wedding for the world." Her eyes swept the venue once more, her lips pursed in disapproval. "Although, I must say, the decor leaves much to be desired. Couldn't you have chosen a more prestigious venue?" Olivia's smile faltered, and she glanced around nervously. "But Mom, this is the place I've always dreamed of getting married. It's perfect, and Tyler, and I love it." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Tyler? Ah, yes, your fiancé." She said the word as if it left a bad taste in her mouth. "Tell me, dear, why on earth did you choose to marry someone so ordinary?" Olivia's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to defend her beloved, but before she could speak, a familiar voice cut through the air. "Mrs. Hastings, I presume." Karen whirled around to see the young parking attendant from earlier, his expression unreadable. "You," she spat, her eyes flashing with fury. "How dare you approach me after the way you treated me?" The attendant's lips curved into a small smile. "I'm Tyler, the groom. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Hastings." Karen's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. This couldn't be happening. Her daughter was marrying the incompetent fool she had so callously dismissed. Horror and humiliation washed over her as she realized the gravity of her actions, and in that moment, she knew her carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. The color drained from Karen's face as she stared at the young man before her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Olivia, her precious daughter, was marrying the very same attendant she had so callously dismissed and berated just moments ago. You can't be serious," Karen stammered, her voice trembling with a mixture of disbelief and outrage. "My daughter is marrying you?" Tyler's expression remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed a hint of amusement. "That's right, Mrs. Hastings. Olivia and I have been together for 3 years now, and we couldn't be happier." Olivia reached out and grasped Tyler's hand, her face radiant with love and adoration. "Mom, I know this might be a bit of a surprise, but Tyler is the most wonderful man I've ever met. I love him with all my heart, and I hope you can at least try to accept our relationship." Karen's mind raced, desperately searching for a way to salvage the situation. This was not how things were supposed to go. Olivia was supposed to marry a wealthy, well-connected suitor who would elevate their family's status, not some common parking attendant. "Olivia, darling, you can't be serious," Karen pleaded, her voice dripping with false concern. This boy is simply not worthy of you. Think of your future. Think of our family's reputation. You must call off this wedding at once." Olivia's expression hardened, and she squared her shoulders defiantly. "No, Mom. I won't call off the wedding, and I won't let you ruin this day for me. Tyler is the love of my life, and I'm going to marry him whether you like it or not." Karen's eyes narrowed, and her fist clenched at her side. This was unacceptable. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to have her daughter throw it all away on some lowly commoner. She opened her mouth, ready to unleash a torrent of scathing remarks, when a sudden movement in the corner of her eye caught her attention. The parking attendant, Tyler, was staring at her with a strange expression on his face. It was a mix of amusement, pity, and something else. Something that sent a chill down Karen's spine and made her realize that this was a battle she was not going to win. Karen's eyes narrowed as she studied Tyler's expression, and a sense of unease began to creep up her spine. There was something about the way he was looking at her, a hint of amusement, perhaps even pity, that made her feel deeply unsettled. "What are you playing at, boy?" she spat, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you think this is some kind of game?" Tyler's lips curled into a wry smile. "Not at all, Mrs. Hastings. I'm simply a man who loves your daughter very much, and who hopes that one day you'll be able to see past her social status and see the wonderful person she is." Olivia squeezed Tyler's hand, her eyes shining with adoration. "Tyler's right, Mom. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I wish you could see that." Karen's nostrils flared, and she opened her mouth to unleash a scathing retort, but a sudden commotion near the entrance caught her attention. A group of well-dressed guests were making their way towards them, and at their center was a tall, distinguished-looking man. "Ah, there you are, Olivia," the man exclaimed, his voice booming across the hall. "And Mrs. Hastings, so good of you to join us." Karen's eyes widened in recognition. It was Philip Sinclair, the wealthy CEO of a prominent tech company. He was exactly the kind of suitor she had hoped Olivia would marry, and his appearance now only served to highlight the stark contrast between his stature and Tyler's. "Philip, darling, how wonderful to see you." Karen gushed, flastering a saccharine smile on her face as she swept towards him. "I must say, I'm simply thrilled to be here, celebrating Olivia's special day." Philip smiled benevolently, completely oblivious to the tension that crackled in the air. Yes, it's a joyous occasion, isn't it? Though I must say, I was quite surprised to hear that Olivia had chosen to marry, well, someone other than what I had expected." Karen's eyes narrowed, and she shot a pointed glare in Tyler's direction. "Yes, well, I'm sure it's all a terrible misunderstanding. Olivia, darling, why don't you introduce me to your fiancé?" Olivia's expression hardened, and she stood her ground. "Mom, this is Tyler, the man I love and the one I'm going to marry. And Philip, I'm sorry, but my heart belongs to Tyler, not to you or anyone else." The color drained from Karen's face, and she felt a surge of panic rising in her chest. This was not how things were supposed to go. Olivia was supposed to marry Philip, not this parking attendant. But as she watched the scene unfold before her, she realized that her carefully constructed plans were unraveling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Karen's world was crumbling around her. As Olivia introduced Tyler as her fiancé, the distinguished Philip Sinclair standing by her side, she felt her carefully constructed plans slipping through her fingers. "Olivia, darling, this simply won't do," Karen said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Philip is a wonderful, successful man. Surely you can see that he would be a much better match for you than this parking attendant." Olivia's eyes narrowed, and she stood her ground. "Mom, I love Tyler with all my heart. He's the one I want to spend the rest of my life with, not Philip or anyone else." Philip's brow furrowed, and he glanced uncertainly between Karen and Olivia. "I must say, I'm quite surprised by this development. Olivia, I had hoped that we might have the opportunity to discuss this further." Karen seized the chance, placing a delicate hand on Philip's arm. "Oh, Philip, darling, I'm sure Olivia is simply overwhelmed by the excitement of the day. Why don't you and I have a little chat, and I'm sure we can sort this out." But before Philip could respond, Tyler stepped forward, his eyes sparkling with a mischievous gleam. "Actually, Mrs. Hastings, I think it's best if you and Philip leave Olivia and me alone. This is our wedding, and we'll decide who we want to spend it with." Karen's jaw dropped, and she stared at Tyler in stunned silence. How dare this parking attendant speak to her in such a manner? She opened her mouth to unleash a scathing retort, but Olivia beat her to it. "That's right, Mom. Tyler and I are getting married, and we don't need your approval or Philip's. If you can't accept that, then you're welcome to leave." The color drained from Karen's face, and she felt a surge of panic rising in her chest. This couldn't be happening. Her carefully constructed plans were unraveling before her eyes, and she was powerless to stop it. As Philip looked on, clearly uncomfortable, Karen realized that she was fighting a losing battle. Her daughter was no longer the pliable, obedient child she had once known. Olivia had found her own voice, and she was determined to live her life on her own terms. With a resigned sigh, Karen turned on her heel and stormed out of the wedding hall, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. But as she pushed through the ornate doors, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread, for she knew that this was only the beginning of her downfall. Karen stormed out of the wedding hall, her mind reeling. How dare Olivia defy her like this? This was supposed to be her day, her triumph. And now, her carefully constructed plans were unraveling before her eyes. As she made her way to her car, she could feel the eyes of the guests burning into her back. She could hear the whispers, the murmurs of disapproval, and it only served to fuel her rage. Once inside the safety of her Mercedes, Karen gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. She had to do something, anything, to regain control of the situation. Olivia couldn't be allowed to throw away her future on some parking attendant. Suddenly, an idea began to take shape in Karen's mind. She would use her connections, her wealth, to put a stop to this madness. She would make Olivia see reason, even if it meant resorting to more drastic measures. With a steely determination, Karen started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, her mind racing as she plotted her next move. She would need to call in some favors, pull a few strings, but she was confident that she could make this right. As she drove, Karen couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. There was something about the way Tyler had looked at her, something in his eyes that had unsettled her. It was as if he knew something she didn't, as if he was one step ahead of her. But Karen pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. She would stop at nothing to ensure that Olivia married the right man, the man who would secure their family's future and status. And if that meant destroying Tyler and his relationship with Olivia, then so be it. With a renewed sense of purpose, Karen made her way back to her palatial estate, already formulating a plan to take down the man who dared to stand in the way of her daughter's future. Little did she know, however, that her actions would only serve to hasten her own downfall. As Karen stormed into her lavish mansion, her mind was a whirlwind of fury and desperation. How dare her daughter defy her like this? Olivia was supposed to marry the wealthy and influential Philip Sinclair, not some lowly parking attendant. With a shaky hand, Karen poured herself a generous glass of vintage wine, the deep crimson liquid sloshing against the crystal as she downed it in a single gulp. She needed to think, to formulate a plan to put an end to this madness. Sinking into the plush leather chair in her study, Karen's thoughts raced. She had connections, power. Surely she could find a way to sabotage this wedding, to make Olivia see reason. Just then, a soft knock on the door interrupted her frantic musings. "What is it?" she snapped, her voice dripping with agitation. Her personal assistant, a meek young woman named Emily, poked her head in, her eyes downcast. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Mrs. Hastings, but there's a call for you on the line. It's Mr. Sinclair." Karen's eyes widened, and a sinister smile spread across her face. "Excellent. Put him through at once." As Emily scurried to connect the call, Karen straightened her posture, her mind already whirring with possibilities. Philip Sinclair was a powerful man, with connections that could prove invaluable in her quest to take down Tyler and his relationship with Olivia. "Philip, darling, how wonderful to hear from you," she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I must say, I was quite surprised by the turn of events at the wedding earlier." Philip's deep baritone rumbled through the line. "Yes, well, I must admit, I'm quite perplexed as well. Olivia's choice of partner is unexpected, to say the least." Karen leaned forward, her eyes glinting with determination. "Well, you know, Philip, I've been thinking. Perhaps there's something we can do to rectify the situation." A brief pause, then Philip's response, laced with a hint of intrigue. "I'm listening." Karen's lips curled into a triumphant smile. This was it. Her chance to regain control, to secure her daughter's future and her own standing within the elite social circles she so cherished. All she had to do was convince Philip to play along, and together, they would bring Tyler and Olivia's relationship crashing down. As Karen plotted with Philip Sinclair, unaware that her sinister scheme was about to backfire spectacularly, the young parking attendant turned groom, Tyler, stood by Olivia's side, a mischievous glint in his eye. "So, you really think your mother is going to try and sabotage our wedding, huh?" Olivia asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Tyler chuckled, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. "Oh, I had no doubt about it. Your mother is a force to be reckoned with, and she's not going to take this lying down." Olivia sighed, resting her head on Tyler's shoulder. "I just wish she could see how happy you make me. Why does she have to be so controlling?" Tyler pressed a gentle kiss to the top of Olivia's head. "Don't worry, love. I have a plan." As Karen and Philip conspired over the phone, hatching a plot to discredit Tyler and his family, little did they know that their every word was being recorded by a hidden device Tyler had planted earlier. He had anticipated Karen's scheming, and he was ready to expose her for the manipulative, entitled woman she truly was. When the time was right, Tyler presented the evidence to Olivia, who was horrified but not entirely surprised. Together, they confronted Karen and Philip, and the resulting fallout was nothing short of spectacular. Karen's web of lies and deceit unraveled before her eyes, and her reputation within the elite social circles she so valued was irreparably tarnished. Philip, realizing the depth of Karen's manipulation, distanced himself from the Hastings family, leaving Karen to face the consequences of her actions alone. In the end, Olivia and Tyler's wedding went off without a hitch, surrounded by loved ones who truly supported their union. And as for Karen, she was forced to come to terms with the fact that her daughter's happiness meant more than her own selfish desires, a lesson that would forever change the course of her life.